So welcome. And so the two presenters today are Carla Milesi, and is an emerging stormwater technology coordinator for the Washington Stormwater Center at University of Washington Tacoma Center for Urban Waters. She is the lead scientist for the center's collaboration with the Washington State Department of Ecology's Technology Assessment Protocol TAPE program. Prior to joining the center in 2014, Carla spent over 10 years as an environmental consultant at Cardno, implementing and managing stormwater monitoring and BMP assessment projects. And we also have Howie from Department of Ecology, more than 40 years experience in planning, design, and construction of stormwater projects. He is a stormwater engineer for the Department of Ecology, with permit managers to assist jurisdictions throughout the state in meeting their permit requirements. Doug also manages the Technology Assessment Protocol, Ecology's TAPE program, where Ecology evaluates emerging technologies for use in Washington State.
Good morning. Wow. I normally don't need to use a microphone, but since we're sending off to ether, we're going to use the microphones. Thank you for being here. I've got 40 years of experience, but I started when I was 5. So I'm not really as old as I look. It's working for Ecology that makes the issue right here. So I'm going to start out by doing a little bit of, hopefully, get it moved. There we go. To bring us back on what TAPE is, how we've been there. So we've been around for 20 plus years, long time. So 1999 was when it was originally established. So it gives us 24 total years of going on. And in 2002, Ecology established a program, a formal program. The reason we were doing this is there are a lot of manufactured treatment devices that were being brought into the state, and people were saying, "Oh, I can meet all your requirements. We have removal requirements." They're coming in and saying, "We can do it. Don't worry about it. Just let us install our device." And we said, "Yeah, well, that's fine. We can install our device, but you got to prove it to us that you can meet our requirements, our 8% TSS reduction and various other metals reductions." And they said, "Well, how do we do that?" And so we said, "Okay, I guess we better set up some protocols." So we set up our TAPE protocols on how to do this. We've modified these protocols a number of times over the years, 2004, 2008, 2011, 2018, and we're planning to have one for, well, we're planning to have a 2022, missed that one, but we're trying to get a 2024 update that Carla will talk about what we want to put into that 2024 update. There are 29 technologies with GULDs. Some of those technologies have a GULD for enhanced and a GULD for basic, and that counts as 2. So you may not have 29 different devices out there, but there are 29 different GULDs out there. 26 proprietary manufacturers. 3 of them are non-proprietary. Those are essentially BMPs created by DOT, and then in the DOT manual. And then we have 17 that don't have a GULD yet. They're somewhere in the process of getting from applying for a participation in TAPE and actually getting the information to us. So we have recently we made some changes that haven't gotten into the manual, but we're putting in the manual. One of those is a policy for what happens when you have a drain down. So a lot of devices have a chamber where the water goes into, and then it needs to drain down between storm events, but that water that drains down doesn't get treated, and if it goes out into the pipe, it's untreated water going out in the pipe, and so you're no longer meeting the 91% removal criteria. So we had to identify how to change, we've evaluated that one. How do we deal with treatment and flow rate of looking at various different ones? So we're using the effluent rate to monitor treatment capabilities. We've identified how many samples you need to have in order to go from a PULD to a CULD. You need field data that people say, "Well, how many samples? 1, okay?" So we've established how many samples you need there. We need to requiring people to do a range of flow rates when they're looking for the GULD. Typically, a lot of times they give us the same flow rate over and over and over again. That doesn't tell us how much you're treating. So we're requiring that they do a range of flow rates when they turn stuff into us. We also want to look at the bypass. So if the device can't handle all the flow that comes into it and bypasses around the treatment, is that happening at the right time? Is it happening when flow is coming in or higher than the flow rate or not? And we're also going to be working on maintenance criteria. A lot of the people out there using these are saying, well, we know they can treat, but when can they be maintained? And so we're worried about that. And I think I'm turning this over.
Hello. So I'm really going to be focusing on discussion about this maintenance hydraulic assessment that we are looking to add to the requirements for the TAPE protocol. This came about, actually, I think we first started discussions about it back in 2019. We were seeing that there was an increase of hydraulic loading rates. The devices that were coming through TAPE were requiring or requesting a higher and higher hydraulic loading rate for their approval. And as they were doing their testing, we were seeing a decrease in the maintenance cycles. So they may be able to treat at these higher flow rates, but it could be that they're sacrificing the maintenance cycle. So instead of having an annual maintenance cycle, they're now needing to be maintained every 6 months or 4 months or 3 months, or in some case, 1 month. And so the maintenance side of things is not a requirement within TAPE. If they can show to us that they can meet the performance goals in terms of treatment, they can be approved. And so we want to get a better idea for our municipalities. We wanted to get a better idea of what is the actual maintenance cycle of these devices. And you can see here, this is a graph, going back to 2008, and you can see the maintenance frequency as it decreases over time, and the hydraulic loading rate as it increases over time. And this is specifically for the media filters. And I do want to say that a lot of the tests being done in the past couple of years have been done at a single site in Seattle. We call it our Lake Union Ship Canal site, and it is dealing with mostly highway runoff. And that's where we're seeing a lot of these issues, a lot of these early clogging issues. So it could be potentially that it's due to that site, but we are seeing it at other sites as well. Some of the other data collected at other sites, we're seeing this as well. So we really want to get better performance data or better maintenance data so that our municipalities can have a better idea as to what the actual, what are our maintenance needs going to be for these systems when we install them? Can we realistically maintain them at a frequency to get the performance that we need for our water quality? Because we know that most municipalities can't go out every 2 to 3 months to be maintaining these systems. So that is the background. We started working on this in 2019. It really picked up speed. Started discussions back in 2019 with a subgroup of the TAPE Board of External Reviewers and the Stakeholders Advisory Group, which are made up of representatives from our local jurisdictions in the SAG, as well as stormwater professionals from around the country on our TAPE BER. And then over the years, we have created a draft. We first of all came up with some ideas, like a set of 8 ideas that we sent out and did a survey of folks, interested parties, stormwater equipment manufacturers, members of the BER, members of the local jurisdictions, and to kind of narrow down which direction they thought we should go. Based on that, we developed this draft outline, which we produced and shared again for comment, and that's kind of where we are now. And so I want to provide just a summary of the assessment. It's something that we are thinking would be required within maybe 3 years of receiving a general use level designation, or after the first installation in Washington State. We have some manufacturers that they get their GULD, but then they have a hard time breaking into the market in Washington. And so if they don't have any devices in Washington, we're not going to make them do this additional hydraulic maintenance assessment. But once they get their first site here, then that's when it will kick in that they need to start doing this. It would be required from 3 different sites, one of which would have to be in the Pacific Northwest. The other 2 can come from other parts of the country. And in essence, it would be doing flow testing to assess how much of a water year the BMP can treat at their design flow rate without bypassing. So a little bit about, we thought very hard about the site selection and how that would play into this, because of course, if you choose too clean of a site, the system may look great and it may be able to go for multiple years without clogging. If you have a site like the Ship Canal site, you might have it clog after just a few months. And so we want the sites to represent different land uses and typical installation for the device. So we're actually, especially for technologies or for manufacturers that have multiple technologies installed either in Washington State or around the country, we want to know have them provide us with information about where those are installed, what type of land use are they mostly treating, and the sites that they choose for this test should be representative of that. Ecology also highly recommends they collect site characterization samples as part of their site selection. And then once they choose a site, the BMP must be sized appropriately for the site using local sizing guidance. So we don't want them to install this enormous device and have flow rates come through there that, you know, are much lower than what the system is designed to handle. And so again, it can go for multiple years without needing to be maintained. So it needs to be sized appropriately. And then the site characterization results and site information for each site would need to be included in a monitoring plan that is submitted to and approved by Ecology and the TAPE program before they can start their monitoring. It could be completed or overseen by an independent third party. We went back and forth on this. We were debating whether it needed to be completed by a third party, but TAPE testing, the performance testing allows for there to be have an independent third-party observation, and so we are going to allow that for this as well. And this is actually a photo of a manufacturer that has already done this test. So we have started to require this already for one site for technologies that were tested at the ship canal, since those maintenance cycles were so short, and we were really worried about, you know, is this accurate? If it is, then we really need to warn the municipalities. If it's not, then we want to have additional data to say it's not. And so we have already started requiring this of systems that were tested at the ship canal. And this is a photo. And to be fair, a lot of this, the outline we produced here was based on how they did their testing, which I think was developed by Herrera, which I saw Dylan sneak in here somewhere, I think. There he is. So this is a photo from that test that was done by one of the manufacturers. And so the flow test would be done at least quarterly using a water truck, a hydrant, or another water source. And so the flow would be increased. It would be, you know, for here, it would be sent down the curb. This is, you know, a kind of a tree filter type device. Water be directed down the curb until it entered into the system. So we would want flow to be directed to the system as it naturally would during a storm event. The flow would be increased until the design flow is reached or the system bypasses, whichever occurs first. And we consider bypass, if there's bypass below the design flow rate, we consider that failing. If it is able to pass flow at the design flow rate, they document that, or either way they document it. But if it is able to pass flow at the design flow rate, check, you passed, you can return in 3 months and do this all over again. If they bypass below the design flow rate, that is considered failure, and then that would be the end of the study. Alternatively, the manufacturers could choose to use continuous flow sensors if they wanted to install flow meters to monitor the influent, effluent, and bypass flow. However, that data would still need to show flows up to the design flow rate, at least quarterly. And so then they would just be at the mercy of the weather to see whether or not you would have flows that reach that design flow rate. Because that's really what we want to see. We want to see how much flow the system can handle before it bypasses to ensure that it is able to treat at its design flow. They would continue this test for 1 water's year worth of flow, or the unit can no longer pass flow the design flow rate, whichever is first. In addition to that, they would need to do quarterly maintenance inspections, and they would do this while they were out on site to do their flow testing. Just do maintenance inspection, take a look at, you know, how the system is looking, how much sediment has accumulated, et cetera, what their typical maintenance inspection would entail. And they would collect influent TSS and PSD samples during 6 storm events. These would not be collected during the hydrant testing. These would be actually during real storm events. And for each storm event, we would have them collect 5 evenly paced grab samples. So they wouldn't need to set up an automated sampler, but we would want to have 5 evenly paced grab samples that are then composited into a single single container for analysis. And we'd want them to target the rising limb of the hydrograph for that event. And the water quality results would not dictate whether it passes or not, but it would help give context to the maintenance data. So again, if we're seeing really low PSD or high PSD and low TSS, that could give some context to maybe it the performance. If we saw really low particle size and high TSS and the system was still able to perform well, that's pretty encouraging. And then they would produce a single report presenting the flow and water quality data from all 3 sites, and those would be submitted to Ecology for review. And the results from this assessment would be added to the General Use Level Designation. So we either put it in we either create a new maintenance section of the GULD to document this, so that or we would put it in the conditions of use section, which is where the maintenance data is right now. But we would want to have it somewhere where the jurisdictions could readily access it, and it would make sense so that they could really use that data to determine whether or not this is a system that they would want to approve and install for a project. And this may be required for all new and existing GULDs. So it's something that if a system has been approved for 24 years, whatever it takes, for starter approving systems, we may require them to go back and do this testing. So that's still something that's under consideration. And again, just to highlight, this all is still under development. So we're still having meetings with our subgroup of the BER and SAG to figure this out. And we're also working with some members of the Stormwater Equipment Manufacturers Association to get their input. And so that kind of completes the portion of the maintenance and hydraulic assessment. And Doug is going to talk now about the future of tape and the potential transition to STEPP.
As you can tell, I'm on the administrative side, not the technical side. She takes care of all the technical stuff, and I'm glad to have Carla around on this because I couldn't do it. So thank you very much, Carla, for doing all these things. So Ecology has been granting the University of Washington $200,000 plus each biennium to run the TAPE program. And there are a lot of cities and counties around the country that are using our information. So they tell a developer if it's approved through TAPE, they will accept it. So there's a lot of people freeloading off the TAPE program. And so I want to stop having to pay $200,000 every 2 years and to keep a program similar to the TAPE program going. So we're starting a program called STEPP, the Stormwater Testing and Evaluation of Products and Practices. It's a national program that we've been talking about since 2010. So a lot of discussions about this. SWEMA, or not SWEMA, the NIMSA, National Municipal Stormwater Association, is now the lead organization to be running this. And they're collecting funds from various different people to run STEPP. So they're starting to get funded to do many things. We are getting we're combining New Jersey's lab program and Washington's field testing programs under the STEPP banner. And they have started producing ASTM specifications for the lab testing portion of this. And Carla and others are working on ASTM specs for the field development of this. So we're doing the translation of them into various different entities. I think I jumped ahead on what I was supposed to be talking about. So let me go back a page. So it looks like we have done so lab verification in NJCAT and field verification in TAPE. The hope is that we will just seamlessly move in to the STEPP program using the ASTM specs and work our way forward from that, pushing wrong buttons and everything like that. So the lab standards, we've completed 5 of them through ASTM, and we're working on others. Field standards, we have one, which is essentially, here's the TAPE protocol. What we're intending to do is break the TAPE protocol into smaller pieces, such as field sampling and testing, lab testing, and collection of samples, and all the other various different individual little pieces of the field test. To start off the program, we want to get ASTM spec for essentially the TAPE guidance manual that we have online right now is our hope to get that started so we can move forward on what's going on. STEPP is hoping to roll out a trash capture verification program. So that what would happen is we set the protocols on how to do testing, whether it's lab or field testing. There's steps in that. You have to request a QA/BP, quality assurance project plan for your test site and get that approved. And then you submit a technical evaluation report on your testing and get that reviewed and approved. And what the STEPP program will do is they will verify that the information that's in the report was collected properly. The QA/BP was written properly, the evaluations were written properly, the calculations in the TER were all done correctly. And they will verify that this device has shown that it can remove X% of TSS at a design flow rate of Y. And then that verification report would come to each individual city or county, and they would look at it and say, okay, that meets our requirements, so we will accept that, or that doesn't meet our requirements. The reason we're doing this is because there are some places that want 70% removal of TSS, not 80% removal. Some places want 85%. What we do here in Washington is we say, they got 80%. We don't care about if they got 82 or 83%. All we care about is they got 80. And maybe they got more, but we don't care. But other states might want 82 or 83%. So this verification program is going to be used to say, this was all done correctly. Then they would send it to the administrator in Washington State, and the administrator in Washington State would look at it and say, okay, they get a GULD, a General Use Level Designation. So TAPE right now skips that two-step process. They go straight to the GULD for Washington State, but we would have a two-step process where someone in Washington would look at the verification and move forward on that. So once we have verified long-term funding, I had to restart TAPE in 2011, and I don't want to have to do that again. And so I want to make sure that STEPP is verified and running and will continue running. Then TAPE will move into that process, and we will no longer be spending state money to run this program to help everybody else around the country. The other people will be spending their money to help out. And so we figure we're going to go at least another 2 years. That's going to take at least another 2 years before STEPP is up and running, maybe even more. So our latest request, I've sent it up the line to get to meet the budget that we request that we got from Carla for the next 2 years of operation. So hopefully that's going to take place. Is that the last slide? Okay. Ta-da.